Good afternoon to you. I'm glad that you found time to be with us this Sunday afternoon from Nairobi, just a couple of minutes past 2 p.m. East African time. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in and joining us from. It is the 11th of December 2022. My name is Miriam Ogutu. The show is Africa Showdown. Before we bring you the topics and the rest of the panelists, and Dr. Matsanga shall be joining us from a different position. Let me first bring us up to date with quickly the headlines on the leading newspapers here in Kenya and a few from the region. The Sunday Standard: Ruto's subtle power play to tame Raila. The creation of Office of Official Leader of Opposition backed by President Ruto is seen as a calculated power game and an extension of an olive branch to Raila Odinga. It follows in the footsteps of former heads of state in engaging Kenya's preeminent political mover and Azimio leader. That story is on page 8. World Cup history as Morocco beat Portugal. That story is on page 42, 43 and 44. Karibu Yangu Songbird, Shala Mwana's final bow. That story is on page 3. The Sunday Nation: Raila, I will not fall for Ruto's new sweet deal. That is the main headline. And then Sunday Nation is asking up there, BBI season 2. That is the big question. Uhuru to resign as Azimio chairperson, and I think he wants to focus on his peace efforts across the region. That story is on page 22. And it's time for Africa. Marvelous Morocco stands Ronaldo's Portugal to become the continent's first ever team to storm World Cup semi-finals. That is on the back page on the Sunday Nation. Quickly to a few regional newspapers from Uganda. Sunday Monitor: government details plans after Umeme exit. And then Sunday Vision still from Uganda: Museveni warns police attackers. The Standard, this is from Zimbabwe, bigwigs shielded from power cuts. The Daily News as well from Zimbabwe. It is sink or swim for CCC Chamisa. The Nation from Nigeria: setback for Atiku as key Northeast campaigner dumps PDP for Tinubu. And The Guardian also from Nigeria: Morocco break World Cup jinx, stand Portugal. And The Citizen from Tanzania: leasing of aircraft on cards this holiday. And that is what we have in some of the regional newspapers from across the continent of Africa. Dr. Matsanga, if you can hear me, a very good afternoon to you. Very well, as we wait for a doctor to settle from where he'll be joining us from, we are also joined this afternoon by Daniel Wesonga, our in-house analyst and correspondent from Nairobi. Daniel, a very good afternoon to you.
Very good afternoon to you, Miriam. Good afternoon to our viewers who are joining us across the African continent. And of course, it is my pleasure to be on the conversation this particular Sunday afternoon.
All right, and we are also joined by Samuel Tawish, our in-house analyst, as well as a journalist from Nairobi. Samuel Tawish, good afternoon to you.
A very good afternoon to you, Miriam Ogutu, from our communication headquarters. Good afternoon to Dr. David Masanga, as well as Sean Wesonga, and indeed all our viewers who are watching this program in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. It is my pleasure to join you on this program. Good afternoon, Miriam.
All right. Doctor.
Okay. Miriam, I have also arrived. Good afternoon, Miriam. Thank you very much from wherever I am in the remote areas of the world. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for hosting us this afternoon. My internet is not very good, and I have gone straight to working on my phone. And that is all I can say. I'm sorry, I'll use the audio most of the time until I establish my link.
All right, you can start us off with a conversation, even as the U.S. President Joe Biden is set to host leaders from across the African continent in Washington on December 13th to 15th for the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit. About 50 African leaders are expected to join Biden for the December series of meetings, in which the U.S. is expected to discuss the African Union's role with India, the G20 president for 2023. The summit will demonstrate the United States' enduring commitment to Africa and will underscore the importance of the U.S.-Africa relations and increase cooperation on shared global priorities. Now, the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit will build on shared values that include to foster new economic engagement, advance peace, security, and good governance, reinforce commitment to democracy, human rights, and civil society, work collaboratively to strengthen regional and global health security, promote food security, respond to the climate crisis, amplify diaspora ties, promote education and youth leadership. And President Biden will back a permanent spot for the African Union in the group of 20 major economies, seeking to elevate the continent's role in the White House. That is what, according to communication from the White House. So, Doc, you can just start us off with that conversation.
First of all, Miriam, Miriam and our viewers across the world, when you say you are going to join African Union, the G20, are you joining all the countries, or you are joining the organization to be represented? It has been represented for all the time. They have been calling African heads of state to join the G20. So what type of, what is it, what is new that you are talking about now that has just arrived from heaven that we need to think about and then call it a summit that is bringing Africa together? Is there something that they're up to? Well, I wish those who want to go, but I just want to tell you massively, there are massive demonstrations that are going to rock the capital city of America. I know of about 26 groups, different groups of different format that are targeting some African leaders, and I think those who have violated anything across in times in Africa, elections, economy, human rights, and all corruption, you have been targeted. I am very happy that the world voice of mine goes further. I'm very happy, Miriam, that our voice as Pan-African Forum networked with some other people. Something is heard in the world. We are not the only ones talking about Africa. There are many millions and millions of people across the whole continent who are not happy with some people. So if you know you have any problem, any record of human rights, if you have any record of corruption, if you have any record of anything, be prepared as you enter the summit, because there is no frustration. They have not frustrated people, beaten up people because of demonstration. They have actually given them permission. And I can see from some of the documents I've received, some of the details that they have targeted in Africa, Miriam, are very laughable, and I wouldn't be the man of the bad news deliverer. You remember that man in the village who always delivers bad news, Tawish and Miriam and Wesonga? I don't want to be. Let me be out of this and listen also to other people. But I'm telling you, if you have a human rights record, if you have corruption cases, if you have corruption in your country, if you have been siphoning money, these guys have prepared massively, from the Transparent International, from corruption crusades, from human rights crusade, from governance crusade. So this is more or less a battlefield. And it seems to be, frankly speaking, they have been funded by powerful, the organization, the writings, the placards, the documents that I've seen that are running around. I don't want to be a prophet of doom, to be told that I am the one who said it. But you wait and see on the 13th, which is Tuesday, if you have a human rights record, my president on African continent, try to stay home. If you have anything that you have about elections, about what they have, these guys have massively organized to embarrass, to say things, to print out, to demonstrate, to shout at people. And you know, US at times, it becomes very rowdy with very violent demonstrators. And just as in Kenya, as you eat there's something in Kenya say, eat the gas, eat tear gas. The US might also be forced to use tear gas because there's massive demonstrations. So anybody thinking that if we are going to laugh there and your hotel will not be surrounded by placards, they know each and every hotel of everybody who is actually where they are staying. And therefore, there is quite a lot of demonstration. These are peaceful demonstrations. When you see people surrounding your hotel, don't think they have come to kill you. They just want you to get the message. And they are going to surround people's hotels. Some leaders have actually opted to hide their hotels, not knowing that on the ground, the government of the United States has given its where leader X will stay, what will happen. Apart from other security details, a demonstrator in the United States of America is given the leeway, Miriam, to have where a leader X is staying, and they will be allowed, they will be checked, and they will be given the procession. So whether it will be successful or not remains to be seen, but I don't think there is anything. Is there anything that they are going to get from there, Miriam? The answer is, you know what? I wrote 2 letters. I'm publishing another one tomorrow, which is very clear, showing to you that this is what Africa would want as a response to Joe Biden's calling upon AU to come and be a member of G20. Why do you call us now? And why are we becoming a pawn? Are we becoming a proxy war? Are we entering a proxy war, Miriam? Why are we being used? Tomorrow when the leaders leave Washington, Moscow is going to call. Come to Moscow. Come with your briefcase. Come and eat food, drink wine. Some of them drink vodka. And you go home with a briefcase. China will call us. India is going to call us. Britain will call us. What's going on? Why can't we make a stand and stand permanently and refuse this type of callings? And yet, for us, our role is to alleviate poverty on the continent of Africa. Once poverty is gone, Miriam, Africa will work so well that no continent will beat it in its terms as a continent on the continent of in the universe. But for us, Miriam, we have a very big danger. And that danger, my dear sister, is we are never united. We have made things very difficult by the disunity that we see that is coming everywhere, every minute. So thank you very much, sister. I might be lucky. It looks like my internet now has picked something. Can there be some window of hope? I am on. Let the production team look at me. I'm entering from the internet and see whether there is.
We apologize for that, as Dr. Matanga is adjusting with the technology there. Once he's ready, we'll come back and I think continue with the submission. But a couple of things that he have raised there, even as the African, about 49 countries were invited, and majority of them have confirmed their attendance to that summit. And 5 countries were not invited. The White House said Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, Sudan were excluded because the African Union has suspended them over unconstitutional changes of government, and the US has no diplomatic relations with the pariah state of Eritrea. So Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, Sudan, and I think they were suspended from the African Union because of the coups that have happened in those countries, and of course Eritrea, which we know lacks a lot of diplomatic relations, not just with the US, but a lot of other African countries, especially a lot of other Western countries there. So a National Security Council director in the US, Jude Devermont, this is what this person said. It is past time Africa has a permanent seat at the table in the international organizations and initiatives. He said we need more African voices in international conversations that concern the global economy, democracy and governance, climate change, health and security. Daniel Wasonga, I would want to imagine that Africa has been lending her voice in some of these very important issues as far as international platform is concerned, but has African voice ever mattered, even as we've been speaking about some of these things that now they're saying it's about time that Africa had a table in this international organization initiatives. Africa has always been invited. Even in the G20, as they say now, they want to give Africa a seat there. We've always had some of our leaders being invited to this, but has our voices ever mattered in the international platform? Daniel. Samuel Tawish, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Miriam, and thank you as well, Dr. Masanga, for the submission you've made. Indeed, Miriam, from the ongoings, it's very apparent that there's a renewed, of course, interest from the Western power countries in as far as the continent of Africa is concerned. And one then will not be amused really to see such kind of a summit that is actually going to kick off sometime next week. But again, Miriam, you can also tell the level of disappointment written on the faces of not only the African leaders, but also the African people regarding so many of these, of course, global summits that we continue to engage ourselves in, because it appears there's not so much really that is coming out in terms of this particular summit. We've seen in the past in terms of the issue dealing with poverty reduction in the continent of Africa, in terms of dealing with the climatic changes and its ripple effects in the continent of Africa, in terms of also entrenching democracy, security, Miriam, which remains a very major headache for most African countries. There's not been so much intervention in terms of, say, action accompanying. There's so many agreements, treaties, that we've seen such kind of summits really arrive at. So Miriam, even as we look forward to engaging during this particular US-Africa summit, we'll really need to see that in terms of the areas of priorities, that there's going to be renewed effort and commitment in addressing some of the issues that continue to ail the continent of Africa, and also in terms of the foreign relation between the African continent nations and the US, because as far as I'm concerned, Miriam, and I think this is something that is shared across the continent of Africa, that the kind of relationship that Africa continues to enjoy between herself and the US and these developed countries has not been more beneficial to the African continent. And so we will want to see the direct push in terms of how the African people and the African continent is going to benefit in terms of the foreign relation, and also in terms of the security front, because like I've said, it is one of those major challenges that we are facing, the climatic changes and its ripple effect what is the commitment coming from, say, the US in terms of helping the African people and the African continent to deal with the ripple effects of the climatic changes. There's also this question of democracy, Miriam, the place of the human rights, the civil society organizations, which the US seems to be giving a very keen eye, and will also want to see really how are they going to do this without really compromising the sovereignty of the people of Africa and the African nations. Because Miriam, is one thing really to entrench or even advocate for this democracy, the civil society organizations, and the human rights, but again, not to the extent of posing a threat or a security threat to the sovereignty of the nations in the African continent. So it is a myriad of challenges that the African continent is really facing, and we hope through this particular summit that there's so many issues that we have had reservations in terms of the participation of these the developed countries, that they're going to be addressed, and adequately so, so that moving forward it's going to be a win-win situation. It's going to be more of a symbiotic relationship that Africa benefits on one hand as much as the US does. Miriam, I submit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you there. Daniel Osong, if you can hear me, good afternoon.
Yeah, a very good afternoon to you, Miriam. And maybe just to pick it where Tawish has left it from.
Just before you pick it from where Tawish has left it from, Daniel, still in line with what Tawish is saying, the same question I think I posed to him. A couple of things that the National Security Council there in the US, this person Jude Vermont, the Senior Director for African Affairs at the National Security Council in the US, said that it is past time that Africa had a permanent seat. It's way due for in the international organizations and initiatives, and he said that we need more African voices in international conversations that concern the global economy, democracy and governance, climate change, health and security. And when you look at the list of some of the agendas that are likely to be discussed during this visit and this summit, foster economic engagement, advance peace and security, promote food security, you see reinforce commitment to democracy, human rights and civil society and things like that. It appears to me it's like a big brother summoning the rest of the siblings and saying, hey, sit down. So this is what you're going to look at. And I think it will be, when you look at, reinforce commitment to democracy, human rights and civil society, I think that is expected. But some of these things they're saying, this person is saying that it's about time Africa voices was heard. Africa has been speaking and complaining about this climate change. What has changed? Africa has been speaking about the imbalance as far as the global economy is concerned, health and security, and a lot of times the insecurity that these countries cause us in this continent. But what has changed, and will African voices really ever matter in this platform? So this is just a formality.
Miriam, I think in as much as I support and agree absolutely that we need a permanent slot in the UN Security Council, and also not only on matters security, but we also need an equal opportunity when it comes to matters economic development, and other matters in terms of global integration. However, we need actually to also interrogate the timing of these proposals from America. They say in Swahili, aliyeumwa na ukoko, aliyeumwa na nyoka akiona ukoko anaogopa. It simply means he who has been bitten by a snake, when they see the skin, the snake sheds off after a period of time, they actually get scared. They think that it's a real snake. So if the US has not been advocating for this, if the US has going on to actually come up with policies that actually cut off the African continent from the grid of security, dialogue, from the grid of economic development, from the grid of even doing trade with the rest of the world, just by the virtue of them wanting to advance the American interests, then how can we again come to believe that they do not have any ulterior motives by suggesting this? How can we also believe and trust that maybe it is not just, hearsay, where they want to maybe whip the emotions of the African countries in supporting and lobbying, aligning with them maybe against China, whereas maybe they cannot be able to put these maybe proposals into substance. I know the US can influence such a decision to be taken by the G7 economies, but how far have they gone, Miriam, to make it a reality? That is what we should ask. They can promise the world to Africa. They can promise to do this and that, but the rubber meets the road where now they make it a reality. We've partnered with the US in a lot of things, Miriam, starting from security, starting from trade and industry, starting from, regional integration and all that, peacekeeping missions and all that. But you realize, Miriam, the US will always go for the American interests. And it doesn't matter whether Africa disintegrates. It doesn't matter whether Africans die from hunger or they languish in poverty. It doesn't matter whether Africans die of diseases and pandemics and all that. So long as it does not serve the interests of the US, you'll never see the America, coming to the aid of Africa. In terms of even infrastructural development, the Chinese have done more than Americans have done. Where have been Americans all this long? The kind of contracts, the kind of loans we used to have with the Americans and the West, they were actually lopsided. They were actually, fleecing Africans of every single coin that we had. But you can see whatever China has been able to do in the past few decades that we've had Africa-Chinese partnerships. Today, when you go to countries that have embraced these partnerships, you can find, super highways, you can find bridges being built, you can find, top of the art, buildings in the in their city centers and all that. But try and also make an analytical, comparison between that and the years when we used to look at the West. Little progress was actually done, and the West will actually condone corruption so long as their interests were catered for. They could sustain and keep leaders who are actually stealing resources from Africa in power so long as the interests of America were taken care of. Therefore, Miriam, we have to interrogate and ask ourselves, are these proposals by America hinged on the fact that they actually mean whatever they say, or are they just trying to whip the emotions of the African continent so that they are able to win Africa over from China? Because as we know right now, each and every African country are actually doing business with the Chinese, and that is where most African countries have been able to find money to build superhighway, to build, ports, to improve and expand their airports, something that they were unable to do for decades since the post-independence time, with the West. So we have to ask, is it because of the competing interests, or is it because America is just being a genuine friend to Africa? That is the point of departure for this kind of conversation. So therefore, not unless the African leaders interrogate and they're sure of the motive behind this friendliness from America, then Miriam, I think we have to always work with a bit of carefulness so that we don't get ourselves in a situation where we might seem to be so much aligned to America, whereas we are not benefiting from it. And as Dr. Masanga has always said, for Africa now, the biggest task for the African leaders is actually to build Africa, to construct and be able to foster, integration that will be able to assist the African continent to reach the levels where China is, levels where the Europe is, levels where America itself is. But on matters security, on matters, even the current, the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian war, we need an alignment. So if we interrogate these maybe proposals and this new partnership with the US, and we find out that it does not really benefit the African people or the African continent, then it is time to sit back and see the way forward in such particular matters. But for me, Miriam, I think it's a good proposal. However, we just need the goodwill and we need genuineness in it so that we are able to tell whether these are something good to take up, or we need to reevaluate as a people as we even look to uplift the African continent to the global league. I submit.
Thank you so much. And you brought up the issue of a competing interest. Is the United States just trying to look at its own interest? Obviously, they wouldn't meet these African heads of state if their interest was not at stake. And you've brought about the issue, Daniel, of Chinese influence in the continent, and we've seen how that has happened. And also, I think the issue of Russia, which Doctor alluded to at the beginning of this conversation, and we saw how when issues on matters concerning Russia, especially since the invasion into Ukraine, and how the African nations have been voting and the stance that African nations have been taking, and a lot of the nations have refused to be coerced to think or vote in a certain way, and those who have voted to support the motions against Russia in the UN have done that willingly, and there are a lot of others who refused to participate, and others voted against. And so we've seen also the influence of Russia slowly in this continent, even in the middle of that invasion and that war. We've seen Russia really making strides in this continent. So there are competing interests. And could this be, Doc, some of the reasons why, the US is now worried outside of just China, and also now Russia's influence that is slowly growing in this continent?
Yes. Miriam, you have spoken exactly what every person is talking about. One, there is the creation of the BRICS. You are aware that the BRICS are being created. There is a new currency coming in. There is a new system that is going on in Africa that you see quite a lot of dynamics changing. People want to join the new type of formation which can oppose the IMF, the World Bank. We have stringent measures when we want to go to borrow in the IMF, for example. And the new African would like to go and borrow, and he's being put on a tight rope on how to pay. They are tell you that I want you to cut so many policemen, so many women in the army must go home, so many teachers must go home. Look, why can't we we are the producers, Miriam, we are the producers of all these minerals: cobalt, iron, gold, diamonds, all these minerals that they are using to make telephones. We are the producers. So there is that new shift where even Saudi Arabia is trading with Russia. They have agreed that they will start trading with Russia in their oil business. So there is that threat of the BRICS. Nobody is against the US. We are not against the US, but we are only telling you, leaders in Africa, remember Matanga, Mr. Savimbi was used, Johnson Savimbi, from Angola. For more than 34 years, the United States of America kept on pumping Mr. Savimbi with money, luxury, fly jets, arms to fight MPLA. He died like a chicken mouse, a mouse that has fallen in water. Who remembers Savimbi today? Is there Savimbi Day in the US? Tell me. This is a knee-jerk operation. But there is nothing as Daniel, and let people not stop anybody. Let's not become malcontents of this, of our own ignorance, and then stop people from talking about these things. If you want to go to US, go. But I'm happy, Miriam, I've secured about 12 so far today. As we stand now, we have 12. I don't want to mention them, but we have 12 heads of state who are not going there. That's what I was created for. That's a lobby. Doesn't the United States lobby? I'm not being told by, I don't like China either. I don't like Russia either. And let's make this point very clear. Mm-hmm. You will see from Africa. No, wait, then go and pretend that they are very good, they have come to borrow more. So kama unaenda huko na ndege kuenda, lakini tuko na wewe. It is a free country and a free demonstration. We are going to deliver our message peacefully. We are not terrorists, we are demonstrators. And therefore, wewe toa pesa hizo mzuri. Do you use the money? Are we using the money? What? Equally, China and Russia also are not very good. Are not very good. They also come with conditions. Russia comes with arms. It wants to kill, take over these countries because the US has neglected them. China comes with roads, gives you the money, then turns around and said, tie your trouser, and if we shall take off your trouser when you don't pay. So the only difference is this. The Chinese come with hard cash. The Americans come with words. Fill the forms. Fill this form. Fill that. LOC. Letter of credit. They come, then they start teaching Africans. They create a school. Stephen, put on that global. Medium, widen the scope here. There is a video I've sent you, Stephen. Put it on. And if you think I'm telling you lies, they collect Africans to teach them that our global policy has succeeded by indoctrinating students from Africa to overthrow governments. Excuse me? To train to overthrow a government. What? The African president is seeing what I'm seeing? The video is there, speaks for itself. How do you train people to come and overthrow other governments through civil disobedience, projects like George Soros, the ICC, for example? Now there is a looming, I want to break the news here for you. There is a looming, there are two leaders in Africa who are going to go to the ICC because the ICC sent investigators there. So even if you run around thinking you recover yourself, zero, you are nothing on the matters of ICC. Wachana, you are wasting your time. Two, they are going, you have no way out. Actually, three, seriously, they went and killed people. And they thought it was a joke. Now the UN itself, ICC itself, sent in investigators. So even if you beg, you can beg up to Angel Gabriel, but you are going to go there. Your name will have to appear there, then you can answer. Then you give Matanga more time. More time. I am the one struggling to fight for Africa. Yet after the end of this, I'm neglected. So Babugo is free, isn't it? Isn't Babugo free? He's going to stand for elections. Is Bemba not free? Has Bemba even visited Nairobi or London, my home, to give me a thanks apart from saying thank you very much? I will come to London and see you. He has never seen me. So these are worries on the African continent. The US itself does not take its leaders to ICC, but it encourages us to take ours to where? Medium, double standards. Why do you go to such a man? A man who says, I will protect my siblings in my house. But you come and I see you, then probably give you a few chocolates for Christmas. Then tomorrow, tell the ICC under the Security Council that I want the Ethiopian leader indicted for crimes against humanity. You are going to see, it's coming. I don't want to go to the subject, but I leave it there. There is nothing you can hide from this guy. Just maybe you will kill him. You will kill him. You can, if I'm dead, Miriam, Mama,
But Doc,
bury me nicely.
atrocities happened in Ethiopia. I know we don't want to call it
No,
genocide.
no, I'm saying if I'm dead, bury me nicely.
Hello, Sasa.
And sing that.
Accountability.
No, listen, sing that song. Sing that song. You have done your journey. Let me tell you, things happen. You cannot run around and say, help. What way will you help? When you cannot help yourself? Eh? Mimi, Sangine, Africa, you people put me in a very terrible situation. But for me, I've told Africa, what the United States of America is doing is a knee-jerk operation, let's call it. How do you say, for example, Miriam, as I come to a conclusion, because I have to leave you two people to smash it out. I'm running for another destination. Let me say, Ma'am, how will African Union be in G20? This is just stupidity of the highest degree. G20, African Union, is it the Secretary General, Musa Faki, who will sit and then distribute what? Which we don't see in Addis Ababa, which we don't see in DRC Congo. We see the conflict in Mozambique. We see the conflict in Somalia. We are not facing facts. Why has the Somalia conflict been there for a long time, Miriam? This week, there is that show. I just wanted to tell you, Miriam, that don't miss this show on Tuesday morning. And for tomorrow, I want to tell you, I want to give a holiday for all of us on our television, not to, but just to transmit the Jamhuri Day from wherever you are, a production team. Let's celebrate the Jamhuri Day. But on Tuesday, the bold step, the show coming on Tuesday is called the bold step. If you don't have a bold step that you have ever made, don't just watch, listen for this, and stand away, because we want to say a bold step. What have you done in your bold step to tell people the truth in your life? Come on this show. I'm beginning to change the narrative of our television station. The bold step in Africa. The bold step in the diaspora. What is it in the diaspora? Very soon, the diaspora dispatches medium, you will have people who have businesses successfully in the diaspora coming on your show, telling you, I am here in Melbourne, I am here in Sydney, but this is what I'm doing as the diaspora. The Africa show, the bold step on Tuesday. Don't miss it. Every Tuesday and Thursday, the bold step. What bold step has Africa taken to remove poverty, to remove ignorance, to remove disease? Every disease that comes in Africa, we close the economy. Did you know that? Every small disease, Ebola in Uganda, close the economy. Is there any bold step we have taken? Show me one video, maybe. Do you have one there in Kenya? Which one did you take? I'm not singularly saying you, but I'm just talking as I leave you with to smash this. It also coincides with the African type leadership. What bold step has any African leader stood up and told the US, please leave us alone? Apart from Mugabe, whose country was isolated, and whose current president has sent the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much, Emerson. You hear that, Miriam? Thank you. He says, Minister of Foreign Affairs, you can go. I cannot study in front of the same man who has put sanctions on me. And then he gets one chance for me to go there and smell the food. Then when I come back, the sanctions are there. I liked him, Nagagwa's reasoning. Mr. President, thank you very much. I take this opportunity on the platform to thank you very much. Comrade Didi, you listen to, I think that's what friendship is.
But Doc, he's still under U.S. visa restrictions, so he was not going to go anywhere.
No, they had now given him an exemption. So I explained, I asked him, no, I asked him one question. Miriam, but Mama, listen first. Can you see that I'm happy? Asked him one question. You are on a visa restriction. So when you are given an exemption of 3 days to buy chocolate for Mama, as soon as you enter the plane, the visa restriction is there. Does it make no sense, Mr. President? Tell me. Then I remove my discloth here. Now, listen, move this cloth and remove the trousers and walk naked in the streets of Harare. Wachana. We want leaders of that nature who listen. You are on visa restriction. You want to go to the man who has put a visa on you. Now, as soon as you leave his office, you are still now under visa. We went to the bush. We went to the bush. We went to the bush not to fight, to be stupid. When any bush leader, any rebel like me, who goes to the bush, doesn't go there for praying, isn't it to reason higher? Miriam, look at me, ma'am. Isn't it so? Don't you? You are on visa restriction. You enter United States of America for only 3 days. But when you come out, you are still on visa restriction. Why don't you remove the restriction first? How can you call me to your house when you really don't want me to go? You don't want me to even appear there to eat food, to eat pilau. But I am forcing myself to eat pilau on the table. Kula pilau, kula. As you kula pilau, you want to go for toilet, they say, let's escort you. Aye. Excuse me. Are we still together, Miriam? I'm bitchy. I'm like a Bishop Masinde. Are we together?
We are together, Doc, and I think it makes a lot of sense that Zimbabwe's president, refused to go.
Several generals in Uganda, they have been slammed visa. Now you go there to the US, you are explaining what, Mr. President Museveni? What are you explaining to the US? That I would have come with my Inspector General of Police, but you have put a visa on him. It's a human being. Yeah, I don't have any property in the US, not even $1. I don't even have a bank account. And I am not against the US to the level that I'm not an enemy. I am a critic of their policies. And therefore, if they believe in Abraham Lincoln's vision and the value, Abraham Lincoln's vision and the value, they must allow us to tell the truth, to stand. You can't allow the president of Zimbabwe, who is on your visa restriction, remove the visa for 3 to 4 days, and you allow him to come, then as soon as he leaves the place, the visa restriction goes back. He will never come back to see you.
It doesn't make sense.
Even if you say that we Africans were born with very bad minds, upside down. In fact, me, I was born upside standing like this. Even my mother got scared. I talked to her this morning. She cried. She said, you came out stunning. I was stunning. And that's why I reasoned like, hey, I can't, Mr. President, what are you going there to do? And on top of that, they have allowed 2,000 placards. 2,000 placards for you. Some of these African leaders are not even aware of what is going. They will be embarrassed. They haven't even sent their groups, advanced teams to know the trouble that some of them will have an embarrassment. The type of words that they have written there, you might even as well stay in your hotel. That's an embarrassment. Even if you are going to the White House, people have labeled everything that you do. In a man like a Paul Biya. What? He can't go there. He said, no, the Prime Minister will go. Buhari, everybody, the Biafrans have crowded there. All of them, planes have been flying in 2 years. It's not a simple exercise that you think. But I want to thank the people, President Emerson Mnangagwa, and others, and other presidents on the continent of Africa who have made a stand. I don't know, Ramaphosa has a day with his motion of impeachment.
I doubt he'll.
So he might not go.
And yeah, so South Sudan's president will send his foreign minister, Ethiopia's prime minister, whose nation is right now solving some conflict there, is likely to be represented by that nation's
Miriam,
president.
I have 12. Ma'am, 12 men. The reasons that they are giving are the reasons Matanga is telling you. The letter sank so well. Give me a credit. The letter went down. I asked the question, how do you go there? You are not united. You are not united. You are being belittled. Then you run there. To do what? Now, on top of that, the worst thing of this US invitation, do you know what the worst thing is? The danger of it. The Toboe is Toboe. Look at this. They have also invited Boniface Mwangi. So how do you sit in a hall where there's Boniface Mwangi? First, Boniface Mwangi's, and they will first meet Boniface Mwangi from 12 tomorrow. So, then Boniface Mwangi will tell everything about Kenya. Bob Wine is gonna tell everything about Museveni. Why do you embarrass our leaders? We have carried all the dirt. Now the US has called all of them. Bob Wine, he tell us, then President Museveni is going to enter his waste our fuel. This is wasting our fuel, that President Museveni is going to go there. They have already listened to Bob Wine. Why don't you sit as Africans? I wrote my letter. Sit as Africans and unite. And go and tell this guy that we have come here, don't divide us. You called us, give us the money, like a Chinese give us the money. I landed the mic. If I'm wrong, Tawish, stay on course. Maybe I'm stay on course. If I find the danger ahead, always keep my lane shining. We're stronger. But I've done, if you think I did not study this subject, Medium, and I encourage you to finish it, study it, and have it. It's a very interesting. In fact, when you study that subject, Medium, you will understand how some people can come to your country and you find them in a hotel. Do you know what you do? You look like this. Like this. Look at them. What? I'm telling you, that is look at the double standard. You invite President Museveni, And then you have invited Bob Wine and the Besigye. They have carried the documents, files of how they claim President Museveni has killed people. That's what is there in Washington. That's why for me, David Matsanga, I'm proud at my age. I cannot be involved in that stupidity anymore. This is the David Matsanga speaking now. I can't. You can't. The president in Africa must look, he has respect. That's it. We leave it there. Let's sort it in Uganda. But I'm not going to run it to someone in the United Kingdom that come and help me. I ran to UK and asked the UK government to return political parties to Uganda. This is the Dr. Matanga who was on BBC from 1986. Where were some people? I'm here. I'm still here. The only thing that has changed is I'm a bit big, but I'm coming back to my size, don't you see? It's coming back slowly with the face still shining. And I will be there again to see. There will be something. There's God Almighty seeing me. I can see the fire. It is there. I told you that before I go down, I will see it. I don't want to solve anything from US. I want to solve it in my home. If President Museveni has made a mistake, we want to talk to him. That you are an leader, sir. Now, these things are bad. That's what we did. While we wanted the political parties, Besigye did not want the political parties. He was detaining our people without a trial. Charge them, put them in the Rutila maximum prison. Where? Unatembea hapa unasema democracy. Na wewe. You know? So you are going to US, seated, you have been called to eat dollars for Christmas. You see, this is Christmas dollars. People did not have money for their families to buy CG, Nini. These are the per diems of Christmas. Mercantile capitalism, hallelujah, thank you very much, good morning. This is Dr. Matsanga from where you are. Take on the show. There are still several points to raise, but there's one point I want to make, that on Tuesday, the show, the bold step, I would like all of you, including Wesonga, Tawish, all of you to line up. We want to inaugurate that show. Give it time, find the time, and be on this show, Tawish, the bold step. Which bold step has Africa done? As this thing starts, this thing here, what bold step have you seen? And two, lastly, as I leave the show for Miriam, so that she can wrap up her things, I just want to tell the world that my teams were wiped out. All my teams that I wanted were wiped out. Therefore, my suggestion, my now new hope lies in the two teams, Croatia and Argentina. But top on my heart and the brain is Argentina. I wish Argentina take this cup. But if Argentina doesn't, I would like Croatia to thrash anything, an enemy in the middle, and give us a symbol of the former Yugoslavia. Maybe hope will come in the DRC Congo. That DRC Congo also needs the same strategy that we use in Yugoslavia to make it stable. So I wish God comes down and France is eliminated. Fastest. And Morocco is eliminated. Fastest. because both of them are colonizers. Morocco has colonized Sahawari, and Dr. Matsanga will never support Morocco. And you Africans who could go and say Morocco is Africa. Nana alikwambia, ulisikia wapi? Ulisikia wapi? Go to Morocco. Go to Rabat. Have you ever gone to Rabat? Some people say, yeah, Morocco is Africa. Wewe umeenda, ulisikia wapi? I have been to Morocco. I have been to Rabat. I have been to Casablanca. You are looked at as if you are an animal from the cave. Nyenye wacha. Morocco is not Africa. It's just on the map by accident. Let it be crushed. Even if it wins that cup, they should not come to Addis Ababa with it. Until they recognize the Polisario Front. My friend of Polisario Front, who is viewed as a real original African, is being killed. Is being killed. They are killed. They are killing people in Western Sahara. And then you call it Morocco. And I see some Africans, because they have got Mr. Elon Musk, weka Twitter, weka pesa, tulipe pesa. Weka! So that we eliminate some people who cannot pay. And they were talking about Twitter. Then we remain with classic. Mr. Elon Musk, don't hesitate. Put that fee on Twitter. Ndio sisi tunaweza tulipe. After all, God did not create all of us to have the same. I know Miriam will kill me on there. Miriam, don't kill me. I'm only expressing my views. That Twitter has made people say, oh, Morocco is Africa. Where's Africa? Who tells you? Finally, you go to African French-speaking countries. You remove their money from the government and tell them you have to give 70% of your money to Paris for budgeting. Then how can they build a stadium to play football? Then you come with their own, you remove their mothers and give them passport. Show me one African whose passport was taken in Britain. Show me. All those are Africans born in Britain. From Saka, who all of them were born there. Nobody removed them. Conditions in Africa removed them of bad governance. But in France, conditions of theft, stealing our minerals, take them to Paris, make money in Paris, then you come and steal our brains. And you call them their team, your national team. Nyenye wajinga, mliona wapi? Sisi, nyenye Afrika muko wajinga, mimi hapana mjinga. I cannot support France. So therefore, Tawish, your comment, 1 minute. Kwa hiyo peke yake, then I go away. My time is running, 24 minutes. I need to run, otherwise I will be late. Tomorrow is a public holiday, therefore we are off. Let's also make our throats rest. And then Tuesday, Tawish, Daniel, I invite you. Miriam, I hope I have exhaustively done a few things, pick up a few points. Continue studying international relations, you people. It's a good subject. It makes you understand and talk with every authority on some of these things. When you see things like this, you tell a president to come, he is on sanction list. Now, as soon as he leaves the State House, the White House on Wednesday, the sanction goes back. So what have you solved? What have you solved? If those who had not seen this, then there you are. Thank you very much. I just want to listen from you, Miriam, and then you give me matching orders, please.
Okay. All right.
Have I made any sense, Miriam?
Yeah, you've brought up a couple of issues there. Now,
Don't get what it is me they can blame if they want. But I am saying, have I made some sense on these issues? Thank you.
Dr. I think, Dr. You directed a question to me regarding this, the impending, is it semi-finals of the World Cup? And Dr. Matanga, being a chief of the old block, you will naturally expect that, of course, I will follow into your footsteps. And there's not so much in terms of what you like and what I may prefer. For instance, in terms of the remaining 4 teams, which now get up for the World Cup trophy. Of course, naturally, I don't support France. That is for a fact. But again, I would want to say, may really the best team do win this World Cup tournament, and I'm really
what
in support.
About Morocco? That we should be
I'm in
honest.
support. I'm in support. I'm in support of Argentina myself, Dr. Masanga.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm Argentina also. Thank you very much. I think let it go neutrally. To a neutral country. Then watch a huko, not to people who have double standards. Some people are saying Argentina killed black people. Where is the history? Show me the books. Killed who? How many Jews are there in Argentina? Very many. Argentina is made up of Jews. Were they killed? So it's only that it was very far. Black people did not reach. Yes, are there black people in Chile? There are only black people in Brazil. They stopped in a forest and they remained there.
and I've seen, Doc, a lot of Morocco supporters holding the Palestine flag in support of Palestinians and what has been happening there. I don't know, and I don't know if somebody held the flag of Western Sahara. I don't know how they would feel about that. I've seen
was
them
there a
holding.
flag of Western Sahara?
And I'm just saying, I've seen a lot of Morocco fans.
They will kill
bringing
you even in
policies
that stadium.
in Qatar,
You know-
holding Palestinian, flag, which perhaps is understandable.
Yes,
But
they will kill you. They will kill you in that. If you hold the flag of Polisario, Western Sahara, Sahawari, they will kill you. Wesonga, before we hand it over to Miriam, your view, don't hide about it, it's in the cup. Tell us where where your hand is. Daniel Wesonga? Okay, Miriam. He doesn't want to say because I now understand his problem. He has got a problem with my choice. Thank you very much, Miriam. That is all from me around wherever I am, see what I think, and that is what I believe, that this is a catch-22, a knee-jerk operation for the presidents of Africa. The effects, how will it be success? No, you can't call people and then tie them in the swimming pool. You can't call a man whom you have put sanctions on and then call them to go to meet you when you're a prisoner. No, there's no African man who can do that. And thank you very much, President Mnangagwa, for sending your foreign secretary, minister, to represent you. Let him go and find out and ask about the sanctions before you go there. Thank you, brother. Keep it up, Miriam. Back to you. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Now, before we finish, around August, Washington wrote in its strategy paper towards sub-Saharan Africa that was published in August. And Washington said sub-Saharan Africa is critical to advancing our global priorities. That is what the US said. It has one of the world's fastest growing populations, largest free trade areas, most diverse ecosystems, and one of the largest regional voting groups in the United Nations. While Africa remains the poorest continent, the U.S. added, it is possible to meet these era's defining challenges without it is impossible to meet these era's defining challenges without Africa's contributions and leadership. The region will factor prominently in efforts to end the COVID-19 pandemic, to tackle the climate crisis, reverse the global tide of democratic backsliding, address global food insecurity, strengthen an open and stable international system, shape the rules of the world on vital issues like trade, cyber, and emerging technologies, and confront the threat of terrorism, conflict, and transitional crime. It also continued to say that the strategy reframes the region's importance to U.S. national security interest. All right, and in November 2021, Secretary of State Antony Blinken affirmed that Africa will shape the future, and not just the future of African people, but of the world. And so this meeting appears to be a very strategic meeting at a wish that the U.S. is having with African heads of state. And if we could just go by this strategy, what they called the strategy paper, U.S. strategy towards a sub-Saharan Africa in line with its foreign policy. It acknowledges the place of Africa as far as the international community is concerned and the importance of it. And all of these players that come and have interest in this continent, they do realize that. But do we really realize our value and importance as far as the global platform is concerned? That the U.S. will sit down and write a strategy concerning how it wants to engage with us for its own benefit.
Well, Miriam, for far too long, I think the African people and the leadership has not so much grasped the idea that Africa as a continent really stands in a very strategic position. And as such, there's so much scramble, and there's so much attention being now given to the African continent because it is one of those continents that really you will see even these developed countries. You look onto China, for example, and the threat that is posing, for example, to the West. And that is why you see there's a lot of aggressiveness even coming from the West in terms of trying to woo Africa back. Because again, like Dr. Masanga alluded to earlier, Miriam, that maybe there are things that say the US or the Western countries have not been doing right, that China seem to have really taken the advantage of in terms of pumping resources into the African continent, directly so to benefit the people, so that you can be able really to feel the impact of the relationship, especially when it comes to economic empowerment, when it comes to doing infrastructural development in the continent of Africa. And I think, but when you look into the US, for example, the West generally, they have not been so much keen when it comes to the aspect of improving the infrastructure in the African continent and doing some of the things that really are tangible, things that matter to the ordinary mwananchi vis-a-vis what China, for example, is doing. And because of that very, very threat, Miriam, you can see there's that renewed energy, commitment, and determination coming from the US and generally the Western power countries to try and, to assuage again the African countries to come onto to their fold, because again the place that Africa sits today in the entire world really is one which gives every continent or every other nation, especially those that are developed, a keen eye, and they will want really to have a pie of what is made of Africa. And that's why you see there's this renewed effort and commitment. But by and large, Miriam, I think answering your question, I think we've not been able to realize the potential that is Africa. We've not been able to realize and acknowledge that the rest of the world really needs Africa more than we need them. But only because we've gotten used to over-reliance, over-dependence in terms of donations coming from the Western power countries, in terms of aid, and so much, even in terms of being just lectured on democracy and other things, in terms of human rights. And so, I mean, we've always viewed ourselves as inferior, and given the place of superiority to the Western power countries, I think that is what has been detrimental to the African continent. And given that we have the opportunity now to be able to do self-discovery, self-realization, and to actualize the dream that is the African continent, then we will see the rest of the world really coming to look for these opportunities. When you talk about the manpower, Miriam, the capacity of the manpower in the African continent is unrivaled. You cannot compare it to the rest of the world. Miriam, when you talk about the type of soil and how arable the land is in the African continent, you cannot quite compare it with the rest of the world. Look at the climate, favorable for that matter. You cannot compare it with the rest of the world. The space itself, I mean, most of these other nations, including China that I've just talked about, do not have the space that Africa continent has. That's why you see most of these nations and the leadership are so much keen on having Africa really side by side. Because again, if they leave, then maybe their rival, quote unquote, in terms of the economic powerhouse, will be able to take the advantage, and therefore they will not have a place in the African continent. So I think once we are able to realize that as a people of the African continent, we will seize the opportunity and have a win-win situation, a win-win relationship between Africa and the rest of the continent, and not view ourselves as inferior for that matter, Miriam. I submit.
Okay, thank you so much. Daniel, I don't know if you were there, if you can hear me. Good afternoon. Okay. I think we are having a problem with the reception of Daniel. He's not there. But just the last question as we wrap up this conversation, Samuel Tawish. Of course, most African countries will desire to have a good relationship with the US, to also have a good relationship with China, and they don't want to be caught up in that power rivalry like we've seen with these two powerhouses. Is there a way that we could still get our interest from these, these countries that, we can't ignore, the trade, the transactions we have in terms of trade and other things that Africa does benefit from, the US and China? Is there a way that we can balance and not be caught up in their rivalry, still be able to have diplomatic ties with the US and also have diplomatic ties with China, and not feel like we have to be coerced to choose a certain way? We should be allowed to. Is there a way that we could balance that?
Miriam, I think it is more of enhancing a relationship of purpose between the African continent and the rest of these nations or the continent generally. Because Miriam, I do not want to see a situation where, for example, Africa imports more of her goods and services from the other parts of the world, vis-a-vis on the negative side, that Africa exports less rather to the rest of the world. I think that is where the stress. We need really to put so much attention on that. We will need to see a relationship where, when we strike, for example, whatever kind of deals, be it bilateral deals, be it economic deals, whatever kind of deals that we are going to strike, let them be of mutual benefit to the African continent and to the rest of the world. Because in the past, this has never been the case. I mean, you realize that the African imports more of our goods and maybe even services at some point compared to what outside our continent. And they have put a lot of ceiling. They put a very strict in terms of what African people or African nations are able, for example, to export to the rest of the world. That in itself, I think it's disadvantageous to the African people. It's unfair because by the end of the day, we need them to see how we can be able to strengthen on these fronts. If it's about, for example, production of, say, a certain food, commodities that are supposed to be exported to the world, that there are certain standards and or nations, respectively, that are producing certain crops or certain produce, able to be done, to be empowered or taught how it's to be done, so that by the end of the day, we're not going to have our farmers, for example, plant a lot of avocados in Kenya, for example, but not able really to export to the European world. I mean, it's very, very unfair and a disadvantage because at the end of the day, I've never seen really Africa or Kenya, to be specific, being very, very particular in terms of the importation that we are seeing coming from the rest of the world. So, but when it comes to the African continent and the produce that comes from the African world going to the world, Miriam, there are a lot of stringent measures. There are a lot of ceilings that are put. There are a lot of standards in itself really limit the capacity of the African nations really even to export to the rest of the world. So I'm just giving that as an example, stress the point that we'll need more of a win-win situation.
Okay.
Of the day, in as much as we are going also to do business and to import these, say, for example, goods from the rest of the world, then Africa also should be given the opportunity to do the same. Because again, even if you came to the African continent today, you'll find most of the large-scale farmers, Miriam, I just want to go on record. People are not of the, of the African origin. There are people who have come from the other parts of the world, really doing, say, large-scale production in the African continent. Then they have a free world in terms of doing trade or even exporting their produce to the rest of the world. But if it is the African people themselves, there's a lot of, restrictions that are being imposed. So these are some of the things really, in as much as we're going to discuss about all these things, how is the entire world or US for that matter going to respond to some of these issues, some of the concerns that the African people are raising. For example, Miriam, look into the civil unrest, the conflicts that most African countries are going through today. Most of these wars are not ours. They are proxy wars that have not necessarily originated from our continent. There are other external players that are overseeing this in terms of financial support, in as much as they're not actively participating, but they're giving some resources to support this kind of conflict in the continent of Africa. We'll want to see a new approach, and also the Western power countries really coming out to exonerate themselves out of this perception, if not reality, that they're also part and parcel of the bigger problem in terms of the conflict and crises that most of the African countries are really going through. Because of the interest that they have in these nations, they would rather really have these countries continue fighting all year in, year out, so that they can be able to tap and exploit these resources, not for the benefit of the African people, but for the benefit of the Western power countries. So it is, a fully thronged approach where we'll want to have an open kind of discussion and a conversation between Africa and the rest of the world, so that by the end of the day, we should all be able to benefit out of all these agreements and deals that we strike out of these summits, Miriam. I submit.
All right, thank you so much, Samuel Tawish from Nairobi. And that is where we stop our conversation this afternoon. We were looking at the summit that has been organized by the United States for the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit that is slated to take place from the 13th to the 15th of December this month, just a day away. So the things that will be shared on the agenda will be to foster new economic engagement, advance peace, security, and good governance, reinforce commitment to democracy, human rights, and civil society, work collaboratively to strengthen regional and global health security, promote food security, respond to climate crisis, amplify diaspora ties, promote education and youth leadership, and President Biden will back a permanent support for the African Union in the group of 20 major economies seeking to elevate the continent's role. And that is what the White House said, among other issues that they shall be discussing. So I will be looking forward to see how this conversation will go. And of course, 5 countries were not invited to this summit. That includes Guinea, also Burkina Faso, Mali, Sudan, and Eritrea. The U.S. has always referred to it as a pariah state, and those other 4 countries, of course, because of the coups that happened in those countries, they were removed from the African Union. So the U.S. has said that that is the reason why it did not invite these countries, and they are at the heads of states like Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa, who has had restrictions put across, who remains under U.S. visa restrictions, but I guess they had allowed him to attend. And from what Dr. Matanga was telling us, Mnangagwa will not be attending this summit. So anyway, we will wait to see, among other leaders who might not also be attending, who will be sending their ministers or people other government officials to represent them in the summit. I want to thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, you can meet here on Tuesday or thereabout, and then we can continue with these conversations around Africa, because Africa is our business. My name is Miriam Mugutu. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.